When there are so many vocab videos out there, what's special about this one? Why did I create another one? I'm going to give you 3 good reasons, I think. First, I have hand-selected this list. I went around searching for the best and most interesting words to give you. So this is a curated list of the words I really think you should know. Second, somewhere between 95 to 99% of these words haven't appeared in any other vocab list, including those from Kaplan, Manhattan, Economist, or even my own playlist. So even if you've watched a load of other vocab videos from me or other sources, these should be almost all new words to you. Third, I picked them to be fairly difficult, but at the right level for exams such as the GRE. Some of these word lists include random nouns that wouldn't come up in the test, or really advanced verbs that I've never seen used in real life, let alone on the GRE. All of these words, and from my years of teaching and tutoring the GRE and GMAT, these are the kind of words that they want you to know. So these are the words that I've picked out. Almost all of the definitions come from Webster's Dictionary, and I have picked out some example sentences from across the internet to best showcase how these words are used. As always, if you appreciate this curated list, please do leave a comment to let me know. Either way, let's get to the first of these amazing and interesting words. Abject. Great word to know. It means experienced or present to the maximum degree. He died in abject poverty in 1961 at the age of 57 years. Meaning not just typical poverty, we're talking about the maximum degree of that thing. Abject horror was on her face, not just horror that you might experience in normal life, like true terror, abject horror. We're normally talking about something that is detrimental, like poverty, terror, shock. A fantastic word to know, abject. Abominable, worthy of or causing disgust or hatred. That action was truly abominable. A related word is, it was an abomination. And the sentence we have is, his enlightened zeal or passion for reforming the wicked and abominable sentences of the criminal law met with complete failure. Those sentences, those judgments given by judges, were wicked and abominable. They should cause us disgust. We should hate those laws. They are abominable. They are an abomination. Fantastic word to say and to know. To abridge, to shorten by omission of words without sacrifice of sense, to condense something down. The abridged version of the book is the shortened version. You might need to abridge your essay, it's a bit too long. His agent told him that he needed to abridge some of the content of his novel so that it would be under 400 pages. Very useful word here, particularly talking about writing. When you want to condense something or you need to edit it down, you might need to abridge it. Abstinence, the practice of not doing or having something that is wanted or enjoyable. Often we might be talking about drink or other pleasures. If you're practicing abstinence, you are not doing that thing. As the sentence says, abstinence from smoking is now mandatory, compulsory on commercial airlines. As the definition suggests, usually the thing you're abstaining from would be typically pleasurable. You wouldn't really say, I'm going to abstain from being injured. Normally we're talking about something positive. I'm going to abstain from junk foods these days. Practice abstinence. Academic. Now I picked out this word not because you probably don't know that an academic person is someone who reads a lot of books and maybe studies at university. I want to focus on the third definition, the tertiary definition that the GRE or other exams may test, which is this use of the word. Academic can mean having no practical significance, being purely theoretical, speculative. For example, an academic question is one whose answer may be of interest to some, but is of no practical use of importance. Would Ronaldo have scored in the final of the Euros? Well, that's an academic question. It's interesting, but it doesn't apply anymore. Portugal are out. And many of you who know the main definition of academic, as in to do with professors and universities, wouldn't necessarily realise what was going on unless you knew this third definition. If something is academic, in certain contexts, it means it's interesting, kind of cool to read about, but there's no practical, useful significance of that. So I don't think it's academic for you to know this tertiary definition of academic. I think it is useful to know this definition. It's not purely speculative. I'm not speculating. I think you genuinely will use this word. That's another theme of this brand new vocab series, picking on definitions of words that you may already know the primary definition of. Accessory, a person or thing that aids the principal agent. So you may know that jewelry is a certain type of accessory. Or in the first example sentence, we have this silk scarf is the perfect accessory for stylish summer evenings. It just means an object or ornament that helps highlight an outfit maybe. It just adds on to what you've already got. It aids or helps you when you're trying to present a nice appearance. A nice handbag maybe, a scarf, a hat, they're all good accessories. But did you know that you can be an accessory to murder? If you're helping the murderer, you are an accessory to murder. You're something that's helping the agent, in that case the murderer, do the criminal activity. And that's a phrase used in law. Being an accessory to murder is another way that a person is held criminally liable for a death. So there's two nuances there of the word accessory, and I want you to know them both. We can accessorize with jewelry, for example, or you can be an accessory to something, helping something happen, often a crime. Acclaim, either a verb or a noun. The verb is to acclaim something, is to applaud it and praise it, but you can also have just the noun, acclaim. It was received with great acclaim, great praise and applause. The cafe won widespread acclaim for its amazing shrimp dishes and yummy desserts. Widespread praise and acclaim. To accost, to approach and speak to someone in a challenging or aggressive way. You're not just tapping them on the shoulder, asking something gently, you're accosting them, maybe verbally challenging them, coming up to them on the street perhaps. Not necessarily attacking them violently, just maybe going up and speaking rudely out of turn, accosting them. Aggressive reporters waited outside of the celebrity's home, ready to accost him with their in-your-face questioning. It's a nice sort of intermediate word, not violently attack and not innocently question. Sort of get in their face, being a bit rude, not too rude, a bit like paparazzi-like, to accost somebody. Or maybe you're walking down the corridor at work and your manager accosts you and say, "Why were you late?" It's they're not being violent, but they're not being innocent either. They're being quite aggressive and challenging. They are accosting you. Accusatory, containing or expressing a charge of wrongdoing. Why are you using that accusatory tone? Your tone seems like you're accusing me of something. You're suggesting I did something wrong. That's an accusatory look that you're giving me. Or here, the police often use accusatory questions when interrogating suspects. They're suggesting that the person has done something wrong. Now, I was about to say that's a fantastic word, but then I realised that all the words in this list are fantastic, so I'm not just going to keep repeating myself. I think they're all brilliant. Acme, the highest point or stage, a bit like the word the zenith. At her acme, the singer was making over $30 million a year. At their highest point, the acme. Great word to know. To acquiesce, to accept, comply, or submit tacitly, implicitly, or passively, often used with in or to acquiesce to something or to acquiesce in something. You're accepting it, you're complying passively without proactively doing something. For example, if we acquiesce to someone's demands, you're giving in to that, you're submitting to it. Not like you actively want to, you're just passively going, okay then, fine, I acquiesce, I accept. A sort of reluctant acceptance. Acquiescence, or to acquiesce, is the verb. Acrimonious, angry and bitter, caustic, biting, rancorous, especially when we're talking about feelings, language, or behaviour and mannerisms. If something is angry and bitter, instead of friendly and nice, it's acrimonious. You often hear about an acrimonious divorce. The couple didn't separate and stay friends in an affable way. It was acrimonious. They were angry and hateful, resentful, bitter towards each other. Here we have, it is an acrimonious dispute, so exercise sensible caution. It's not a friendly dispute, it's one that's acrimonious, causing acrimony. To be adamant, to be unshakable or insistent, especially in maintaining your position or opinion, unyielding. I am adamant that animals deserve more rights and protection. John seemed pretty adamant that he wasn't in love with her, proclaiming it loudly to anyone who would listen. Unshakable, certain, insistent, adamant, unyielding. They won't change their mind, they are adamant. To addle, funny word, to be confused, or as a verb, to throw something into confusion. Often when you're talking about your brain, maybe, it's a dangerous poison that's strong enough to addle the brain. The old man had addled senses, confused senses. To be a bit addled is to be a bit confused, often with age or being worn out. Dementia, for example, can addle the brain. To adhere, to hold fast or stick by something, as if by gluing, suction, grasping, fusing. To adhere to something. But it can be metaphorical. You can adhere to certain beliefs, hold fast to them. Or you can, as it says here, adhere to speed limits. You're sticking by the speed limits, not breaking them. Or it can be practical and literal. For example, if your skin is wet, the bandage may not adhere well, it may not stick well, the glue may not work. If you follow something and stick to a belief, you become an adherent of that belief. It's all down to the same definition of holding fast to something, sticking by it. To adhere. To be adroit, having or showing skill, cleverness, or resourcefulness in handling situations. Skill and cleverness, to be adroit at something. Rumour has always played a role in politics, but rarely have the backstage operatives been so adroit, so skillful, so clever, and so cynical in their use of vitriol, damaging language. These operatives were adroit, clever, resourceful, and skillful in their use of language. Adroit. Affluence. Simply the abundance of property and wealth. To be affluent is to be rich. When they won the lottery, their sudden affluence caused old friends to feel envious and jealous. Their sudden abundance of wealth, their sudden affluence, or to be affluent. An affront, or the verb to affront, to insult, especially to the face, by behaviour or language. I was affronted by her remarks. I wouldn't suggest affronting your boss. Or in this sentence, to have done so would have been a mortal affront to his ally, Austria. A cause of deep offence would be one way of taking it, an insult, an affront. As the front bit at the end of the word suggests, this is usually direct, to someone's face. It's an affront. Aggrieve, to feel aggrieved, to give pain or trouble to distress. If you feel aggrieved, there's kind of an element of grief there and also aggression. Mixing those two words together, you get aggrieve, to be distressed and in pain. Bernie Sanders supporters have every right to be aggrieved at Warren. Distressed, in pain, anguished, aggrieved. Usually some cause for grief and concern that's now turning to anger. To be aggrieved at something. Aghast, lovely word. To be struck with terror. The ending gast is a bit like ghost. I think it's German. It comes from the same origin. To be aghast, it's as if you've seen a ghost. You're struck with terror, amazement, or horror. You're upset and shocked. Princess Mary was at first surprised and then aghast at this question. Notice how much worse aghast is than surprised. That's why there's two different words there. At first she was just surprised, okay? Maybe not sure what was going on, but then it became aghast. She was aghast. Horrified, terrified, amazed, upset maybe. As if she'd seen a ghost. Stunned in a bad way. Aghast. Albeit. When I was growing up, I always used to see this word and I was like, what on earth is that word? Albeit? I was like, no, it's albeit. It's almost like three separate words in one, even though the all doesn't have the second L. Condense them together and you get albeit, and that's how you pronounce it. And it essentially means even though, or although. And you can notice something about the usage of albeit. It often sort of gets rid of other words that you might need with even though. Take my second example sentence. It was an interesting conversation, albeit one way. As in, even though it was one way. They were just speaking to me, I wasn't speaking to them. Notice with even though, you might need an it afterwards, or an it is. It was an interesting conversation, even though it was one way. But with albeit, you don't need that. You just get straight to it. It was an interesting conversation, albeit one way. Or in the first example sentence, if I replaced albeit with even though, it would sound different. She rose, even though she was unsteady. Extra words, right? But with albeit, it's shortened. She rose, albeit unsteadily, and he grasped her in the now familiar position of his supporting arm. So it's a condensed form of although or even though, albeit. Just like even though, striking a contrast. It was a great day, albeit one that had started with some sadness. Tweaking or twisting the tone of what you're going to say. Albeit. An alias, an assumed or additional name that a person, often a criminal, sometimes uses. Not always a criminal though. For example, you get superheroes. They all have aliases. They have names. Here's the comic book backstory of her preferred alias. For example, Wonder Woman is an alias, right? Her actual name, I don't know what it is. You can tell me from the comics. I don't know, Emma or something. But her alias is Wonder Woman. But then you get criminals also. Look at the next sentence. He travelled under an alias. As in, his real name might be Philip, but then he travelled under the name Inspector Montague or something. You know, it's like a fake name so I can go round sometimes to do dodgy things on fake passports or something. It's an alias. To alienate. To cause to be estranged, to make something alien. To make something unfriendly, hostile, or indifferent, where before there was an attachment. We used to get on so well, but I alienated you with my remarks. I ended the friendship and now you're not friendly to me. We're estranged. It's almost like we're strangers now. We used to be friends, but now it's hostile. I alienated her. Or in this sentence, the appeals court rejected the NCAA's argument that compensating athletes would alienate sports fans. They rejected the argument that compensating them would put sports fans off, would cause them to be unfriendly to the sport, would alienate them, make them aliens, push them away, make them strangers, to alienate someone. And finally for today, we have allude, to allude to something, to make an indirect reference to. Not an explicit, really obvious reference, you're kind of implying, suggesting, you're alluding to something. Are you sure you were on time yesterday? Kind of suggesting that maybe something was amiss yesterday. I'm not being very direct, like you were late yesterday. I'm just alluding to the fact that you might have been late. Or in this sentence, as alluded to, hinted at previously, the entire universe may actually exist in a higher dimensional space. To make an allusion, with an A, not an I, is to make an indirect reference to something, to allude to it. Anyway, that's the end of this set of words. And next time I might do more or fewer. I'll see how I feel. Because every single word in this list has been hand selected by me for the maximum benefit of you, the awesome students and watchers of my channel. Please do let me know if this helped.